your musical taste is really, really broad.
Yeah.
And so, I did hear little flashes. Oh, there's a little Neil Young. There's a little U2.
Yep.
But, you really started out with synthesizers.
Yes.
A kid in Goshen, Indiana.
It was
in your mom's basement.
Yeah, it was a very odd pairing. I think it's a matter of what was available. And my friend's brother had drum machines and different keyboards and stuff. And I picked up a drum machine before I did an acoustic guitar. And I always have this joke that if I would have continued, I would have been conducting this interview in a golden helicopter because my DJ career would have taken off. But instead, I discovered Neil Young and Bob Dylan quickly, and Jeff Buckley, and quickly fell in love with the guitar. But my love of I think I benefited. I feel like some of your listeners would agree. Like when you grow up, I grew up in a really small town, and it was void of any real scene or strong influence.
It was a Mennonite community.
Yeah, it was a Mennonite community, and it was a very small town. And because of the small town nature, it lacked certain cultural things, but it also I benefited from the fact that there was no rules. So a lot of times if you grow up in a more a scene, if you're in DC, you should probably listen to hardcore or punk or, and there's rules and restrictions. But for me, I was able to listen to, New Order and Def Leppard in the same mix, and have Aerosmith and Joy Division, or I just said the same two bands, but, there'd be all different kinds of bands. I'd have The Clash and Jim Croce on, I just would have everything, there was no filters or rules. And I feel like I really look back at that time now, and I'm very grateful for the fact that I just listened to everything. And I listen to music. My band could probably tell you, I just have headphones on from the second I get up till I fall asleep, just trying to find new records and discover new music.
So I know nothing about how it went, but I knew that it was planned, and I know that it's happened. And the question that has been circling my mind, you grow up in a Mennonite community, and then you become an artist who, in the most naked way imaginable, bare your soul through your music. And that doesn't mean that you show people the easy stuff. You're showing people the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And, and we all benefit from it because it makes us all feel like we're not alone because everybody has the hard stuff. But you recently played a gig in your own hometown.
Yes.
And I'm wondering about going back into that community that in a way feels so conservative and so, almost, it's like the antithesis in a sense of what you chose to become in terms of, I would think that they would control their emotions and control their speech.
Very much so.
And you are so open.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what it was like to go back and play in that community. I'm sure you had every emotion imaginable.
I was scared to death. I've played in front of many thousands of people before, and it was a small venue, but it was packed to capacity. There was people on the street spilling over, but and we played pretty loud music, and my grandma was in the audience. My 83-year-old Shirley was out there, and just looking right at me. And it could have gone many different ways, but it was amazing because it was perfect. It felt like, my dad said it felt like the end of a Jimmy Stewart movie or something, because it was, you had all of these different connections in my life, my parents' friends, my aunts and uncles, and it was overwhelming, but it was one of those things. The night ended, and I forgot it even happened because there was so many different things happening in my mind, and my grandma didn't mind the noise, so she was fine with it. But no, it was beautiful though. Like I'm not quite a prodigal son because I go back there and see my family, which I love very much. But I am a lot of people I hadn't seen since I graduated high school, which is 14, 15 years ago. I hadn't seen any of these people, so I look a little different than I did back then. But
you kind of lived in the folk thing for a while, but for this one you came back and you did a rock record.
Mm-hmm.
And the synthesizers kind of returned too.
Yes.
It was recorded. You worked with Ben Vahorn, who shares a studio with Pat Carney of the Black Keys.
Yes.
And I guess he's got quite the collection.
It's between, I've said it before, but, Ben has just an exquisite, almost museum taste in instruments. And it's my Shangri-La. It's my peaceful place on this earth when I go to Akron. I know not a lot of people say that, but I'm a very strong proponent of Akron and the people there. And, I never judge cities by their reputation. I judge them by the people. And I went to Akron, and just it's filled with talented people, but also amazingly creative people that pushed me. And Ben is essentially he's my collaborator. He's my partner in crime when it comes to this. And I want to just keep making records with him, because we make magic when I feel like I'm making magic when I work with him.
Some of the demos survive though. And particularly the guitar part from Mirage Year.
Yes.
And I don't know how fair it is to ask you about it, because in a way, I'm not sure you were there for it. You know what I'm saying?
I was. No one's ever brought that up, but that's a beautiful way to put it. I wasn't there. My mind was, I wasn't certifiable, but I was not of myself in the making of it.
I meant it in a different way, though. It's sort of like you were so caught up in the moment.
Yes. Oh, I see.
When it was over, it was sort of like, what just happened?
Yep. And I can't play. I had to fix my guitar, because it was such a strange environment to be at. It was probably 10 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday in my suburban apartment in Philadelphia. Yet and I had the headphones. It was just into the computer or whatever, but had it turned up and all of my things to make the guitar sound the way it does. And it was as if all the words in the record didn't even come close to the release of that guitar solo. And I think that's why I wanted the guitar solos, because I wanted them to be lyrical and not technical. So they're not perfectly played solos. I'm not a very accomplished guitarist, but I like to be emotional. And that's when I look to people like Neil Young and the people who I just want to hear them play one note for 15 minutes. And it's such a visceral, physical feeling that when I did that Mirage Year solo, that we never changed it. I mean, we cycled it through. I worked with John Congleton, who's a Grammy Award-winning mixer, and we still had the same. And they all agreed they did not want it re-recorded
And I want to drive home on this a little bit, because there are a couple of things that I read about that just seemed fascinating, and a part of human existence that I wish I did, I may not ever get to experience. We've all had the experience of driving down the road and looking up and saying, wow, I'm here. This is kind of where I was going, but I don't remember driving on all the parts to get here.
Exactly.
And I kind of think that that's the way the guitar solo was for you. You didn't remember, and this is my interpretation.
No, I love it.
I read, that when the guitar solo was over, it was almost like you didn't remember having done it, but you were aware that it was over, and your hands were bleeding, and your guitar was broken.
Yeah. I mean, I must have done something, and I'm usually a pretty aware. I'm such an anxious person that I'm always aware of myself. I'm conscious of what I'm doing. And I think when my brain does let go, it let go so severely that I do become disconnected. And, I don't know how I made sounds the way I did. I think the guitar shouldn't have made those sounds, and it did, and to the detriment of my instrument. But it was, and that is such a good metaphor for the rest of the record, how things happened on it, and how things that were not planned were created. And it's kind of what happens when my brain removes any editing functions, and whatever comes is there.
And I so want to talk about that, but I think that everybody, especially after that first song, wants to hear you play again.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind doing another song.
I'd love to. This one's called Goshen 97.
With my friend, then I
singing pumpkins in the mirror, pouring menthols under my bed. Before I was fat, drunk, and mean, everything's still like it. I was lonely, I was having fun. I was lonely, but I was having fun. I don't want to start all over again. I don't want to start